This is the Tonka bean. It's banned for use in food in the United States of America, even though it's common in cooking elsewhere. It has an intoxicating scent of vanilla and almond. Yet, when I tried to speak to chefs about how they use it, the ones in America were only able to talk to me on deep background.
I don't like talking, but
yeah.
I don't want to say what my company is.
I pored over oral histories featuring the chemical that this bean contains, and I learned about the dance of regulation.
We might say you had a revolution.
And the moral panic that caused it to be banned in the United States of America.
Harmful to human consumption.
When we started this interview, I was nervous because we didn't know if it would be anonymous or not. In 2005, the 3-star winning Chicago restaurant Alinea was brand new, and they had a Tonka bean infused foam. In 2006, the FDA reportedly shut down their supply of the bean.
Okay, someone from the FDA is going to be coming to inspect your shop. You might want to hide your Tonka beans.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the truth is, like, I don't know. I mean, I sort of think it might be prudent for me to just put that scary voice on this phone call. You know what I'm talking about, the 60-minute style voice on this phone call, and maybe not.
Yeah, I sound like a criminal.
Yeah, where you're like, I'd use the Tonka bean in my stuff. It is like vanilla, but nuttier, kind of an almond smell. What do you feel like is the taste or smell or advantage of the Tonka bean?
Not a super taster, but to me it really struck me of almond and vanilla and cinnamon. Those are the three that really came across to me. Some people say fruity also. I wasn't getting that. But even when you open the bag, you get just this huge whiff of almond.
And that's why you'll find the Tonka bean in Manhattan recipes, ice creams, in panna cotta, and lots of other places. Just not in the United States. I'm hoping to tell you why, and why the United States remains a massive Tonka bean importer, even though it's banned for use in food. You can look at this map of occurrences and see that it comes from northern South America, in the Amazon. So how did it travel from this region to international prominence? But I'm gonna zoom into another region first, Spain. That right there is Jaén, and that is where Graza olive oil comes from. They are the sponsor of today's video, and the trio is perfect if you want to up your foodie cred. Each one comes in a squirt top bottle. Yes, I love this. There is drizzle, which is perfect for finishing and dipping on anything. You've got sizzle, extra virgin olive oil for cooking, and now there is frizzle, which is a high heat cooking oil that is great for cooking or frying stuff. Today, I'm gonna be making a veggie stir fry because I want some of that slow motion wok action. Oh yeah. This is what I love about Graza. It's so easy to use that it gives you the confidence to do cooking that you otherwise might not. All right, so if you wanna try the trio and get 10% off, go ahead and click the link in my description or use the QR code that I'm floating around here. You can also use code PHIL10 at checkout. Thank you again to Graza for sponsoring this video. Now, let's go ahead and get back to it. I'm gonna be eating. In the Amazon, the Tonka bean grows on top of trees like this. People quickly discovered it has this wonderfully fragrant chemical, coumarin. The Tonka bean became an international commodity, growing in export volume through the 1920s and 1930s. But now I have a bit of a problem in this video. A lot of it happens in the early 1950s, before there are a ton of visual resources, and I've got to make this visual somehow. So I'm gonna go ahead and brainstorm on that. AI video, people love that. Okay. All right, let's do idea number 2. The Tonka bean is all alone in the Amazonian rainforest. But quickly, flavor manufacturers realized, hey, I just want to say that you would be a great substitute to mix with vanilla. This flavoring, for example, evoked vanilla, but it used coumarin, almost certainly taken from Tonka beans. The Tonka bean also became a popular resource for fragrances because the coumarin gives it this incredible vanilla, smoky smell. It becomes common in cigarettes and perfume. This report by the Pan American Union shows the standard drying and harvesting process, most developed for US exports, from Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago, Brazil, and Colombia. And this is important.
And it worked out perfectly for you, right? Nothing bad happened.
Nobody got poisoned by the Tonka bean. So why, just a few years after a glowing report, was the Tonka bean banned? In the 1950s, someone new sits down, and things get awkward. This is a weird period for the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. They were established in 1906, and there were lots of little events along the way. Major ones happened in 1938, when drugs and cosmetics regulation expanded, and some food standards, like for tomatoes, followed shortly after. The 1958 Food Additives Amendment was a major one. It said new food additives had to be proven safe. It had a proviso, called the Delaney Clause, named for Representative James J. Delaney. That clause said that no new additive could cause cancer in humans or animals. But the Tonka bean was banned before that, in the 1950s, so how did that happen?
I mean, you have no power. I've been around 100 years and nobody's been hurt by me.
Don't you have chemicals?
Everything has chemicals.
Coumarin?
Cinnamon has coumarin. It's less than me, but they've all got chemicals. I did not know that he had chemicals.
The 1950s was the start of a nationwide effort for the FDA seeking more power to control food purity. The effort was led by James J. Delaney, the U.S. representative from New York, who was worried about peril on your food shelf. He led a committee to investigate the use of chemicals in foods and cosmetics. I want to emphasize that a pretty irrational, non-scientific concern about chemicals happened at the same time as all sorts of new scientific approaches that were being taken towards pesticides and flavorings.
Most people weren't elated to this situation. Then again, we had a multitude of chemicals that came as a result of World War II.
DDT, today known to be unsafe, was sprayed across beaches, doused on lamps, and covered children's wallpaper.
2 men can treat all the screens of a mess hall in about 20 minutes.
There were other vivid examples. Delaney explained that people were putting acid in beer to sterilize it. Fortunately, it was stopped before it got out. But the conclusion was clear for Delaney. In the opinion of most, the solution is not for the housewife to become an amateur chemist, but to insist that Congress give the Food and Drug Administration adequate legislation to handle the problem before the product gets on the market. You combine that reasonable claim with a broader panic, like the one that you see in this line from a committee hearing. The number of chemicals entering the food supply of the nation has increased tremendously in the last decade. This is a crazy sentence. There's chemicals in everything. Chemicals themselves are not bad. But this is the type of phobia that was taking over the country because there were genuinely bad chemicals that were slipping into the food supply.
We might say you had a revolution in the preparation, the preservation, and the coloring and the staying qualities of our food supply.
Quite frankly, gentlemen, it's starting to trouble me that there are chemicals everywhere. Chemicals in our food, in our cosmetics, in our shoes, in our bowling balls, in our bowling ball accessories, in our bowling ball sprays. It's the 1950s, gentlemen. Am I not making myself clear?
In 1953, some flavor manufacturers testing coumarin discovered that super large doses were deadly to rats. They only tested it on rats. They told the FDA, and the political climate made it clear that the long-used flavoring is banished as food, even though the Tonka bean was being used for 100 years with no human damage. Today, to be clear, the consensus is that it would take 30 Tonka beans to do serious damage. Now, there is some speculation that coumarin was banned because it sounds like Coumadin, a sort of chemical cousin to coumarin, and is a really common blood thinner. It's used even today. That itself started as a rat poison.
Warfarin was originally known as Compound 42.
I found no evidence of a direct relationship between the coumarin ban and Coumadin, but I think it does point to a broader freakout that people were having about a lot of weird new chemical names. That at least is where the evidence points us. I found that in this FDA oral history. This question of the flush of chemical in food, I think part of it may be sophistication of our looking at it. I mean, you take bread wrapped in wax paper. Now, I'm sure that for the first 10 years of that, no one in Food and Drug gave second thought as to what the wax paper might do. Later, we began to worry about what all the components of the wax were, whether there were any carcinogenic impurities in it, and so forth. They were freaked out, and they didn't have the power or the bandwidth to test absolutely everything. So if manufacturers dropped a study in their laps, they almost had no choice but to tell people that it should be banned. It is true then, and it continues to be true, complex, long chemical names, which are incomprehensible, produced a sort of anxiety.
So that's really it. Tonka beans go. No more coumarin anywhere.
Well, technically the FDA does not currently have the authority to ban any product, but, we'll sue you if you put it in anything.
We can use it in perfume?
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Tobacco? Sorry, tobacco? What's not tobacco?
Yeah, tobacco's fine.
What? How could you use it in tobacco and not food?
Yeah, a bunch of tobacco companies sent around memos, but they realized we weren't going to do anything about it, so yeah, that's fine.
Well, I guess if it's what everyone in the world is doing.
No, mostly the United States. Europe will just set some limits.
And it starts immediately?
No. Clearing coumarin products from store shelves is not considered necessary, but orderly withdrawal of the material from use in foods is a desirable precaution.
Sweet. Did I mention that I like bowling? Yeah.
I do tell people they're illegal. That only makes people want to buy them.
I smell this bean, and I do get a little bit annoyed that chefs have to kind of secretly use this in food in the United States, and that you can't buy it in food at stores. I mean, it's easy to get the bean, but it's still banned for use in food. There have been calls to change that law, but I don't think that the financial interests are there to change it. Tonka bean still gets used a lot, and nobody really has a stake for the Tonka bean to be used in food, except for the people who might enjoy it, but have never even gotten to try it. I have done 2 of these banned in the United States stories before. In one, the logging industry pushed a ban of black currants to protect trees. In another one, the 1958 law, the Delaney Clause, was used by the sugar lobby to kill an artificial sweetener, cyclamates. But I think that this video about this ban, it fits in a weird place in the middle. It was a freakout not backed by science, but by sentiment, not by the law, but by a soft pressure. And all that matters, even today. I found a 1954 debate about the fluoridation of water. In the debate, they used the coumarin ban to advance an argument that fluoride might not be safe either. Now, we know that the coumarin ban is kind of an overcooked thing, but it was being used as evidence that fluoride could be bad too. The reason this bean was banned was a type of informal pressure, not a process, but a vibe that coumarin was bad in a paranoid culture. Delaney frequently used anecdotal arguments. In that Peril on Our Food Shelf article, James Delaney said, "The growing number of mental diseases makes one wonder if there is not some connection between that problem and the many new chemicals used in our foods." This conspiratorial thinking is not the way that we should be making our policies. That goes for the Tonka bean, and it also goes for fluoridated water. I don't really care about this bean that much. But there's more that we could lose. All right, that is it for this one. Thank you for watching and being here. Thank you to the person who spoke to me about their use of Tonka bean in a product. It helped me understand why people might want it and understand that it is really pretty mainstream in higher end French cooking of the type that this person does. So, it's an absurd it's an absurd law, so it was interesting to dig into it. But I'd love to know what you think. Do you think there are parallels between the sentiments that stoke fear about fluoride in water, which we are hearing once again, and the ban on the Tonka bean? Do you want to try it? Have you tried it? I want to know. If you don't know, I have a newsletter in which I dig into something that I couldn't get into in the video proper. And this week, it's going to be, why does James J. Delaney have these knives sticking out of his hand like Wolverine? That is the question. What is up with James Delaney's Wolverine hands? It is another story of a Delaney crusade, and you got to go to the newsletter to see it, so I've got a link to that. I think you'll find it pretty funny. So anyway, I'd love to know what you think about all this, and thank you for watching. Bye.